Hi everybody, welcome to Free Flight. Today we're going to be taking a look at winch launching. How to do it, how not to do it, what to watch out for. I'm going to be using my home club airfield of Camp Hill because it's a particularly tricky site. It's bounded on two sides by ridges and in the event of cable breaks or launch failures there's not a lot of options. But we're going to discuss them, and I'm going to show you what to do when things go wrong, as well as also show you, hopefully, a good launch. So while I just complete my free flight checks, let me tell you that today we've got a crosswind. We're 220 degrees, which means it's coming diagonally across the field from my right at 20 knots. So, checks are complete, brakes closed and locked, cable on please.
Cable is on and secure. You have a weak link. All clear above, behind, and in front. Take up slack. All out.
Now you might think this first launch is perfect. It isn't. Take a note of how the aircraft weathercocks as we start to go. I'll talk about why and how to correct it later on. So I've gained flying speed at 40 knots and I've come off the ground. Now in the early part of the launch I'm going to hold the nose down until I get some extra speed. Extra speed is needed because as you rotate into the climb at about 45 degrees, the extra wing loading means that your stall speed is going to go up to around 50 knots. And at this speed, 40 knots, that means you're in a stall condition. At the other end of the field, the winch driver will see you come off the ground, but will keep increasing the acceleration until he sees you rotate. Your rotation is his signal to stop applying acceleration. So I'm not going to rotate until I get between 58 and 60 knots. Let's continue up the wire. So apart from the weathercocking, which we'll deal with later, let's just recap. We come off the ground at around 40 knots. We hold the nose down until we've achieved a higher speed, around 56, 58, 60 knots, at which point we rotate into the climb, and we're then attempting to maintain a speed of between 59 and 62 knots. That's in this particular aircraft. Other aircraft will have different launch speeds maximums. So let's look at what happens now if you rotate too early and the cable breaks.
Cable is on and secure. You have a weak link. All clear above, behind, and in front. Take up slack. All out.
So nightmare scenario, you rotated at 40 knots, the cable snapped, and you've just written off a perfectly good aircraft, and quite probably yourself into the bargain. So before we mentioned how the crosswind can weathercock the aircraft, the other thing of course it can do is tip the into-wind wing up so that the opposite side goes quite close to the ground. And if you're not careful and don't correct that, the wingtip will touch the ground,
all clear above, behind and in front.
What happens next can be equally catastrophic.
All out.
This video doesn't really do it justice, but believe me when I tell you that this kind of accident can leave you ending up with actually no wings on your aircraft and leave you out of action for several weeks, if not months. So finally, let's pull it all together. We're going to apply a little opposite rudder to the direction of the weathercocking effect. We're going to attempt to keep the aircraft going perfectly straight down the field. We're also going to watch out for that wing drop, and if necessary we're going to apply a little right aileron to keep the wings level. We're going to hold the nose down until we achieve rotation speed of around 58 knots. Then we're going to rotate into the climb and try and hold the speed between 58 and 60 all the way to the top, when we will put the nose down and pull off.
All clear above, behind and in front. Take up slack. All out.
So, good launch, yes? Actually, no. Let's just pause the sim at the minute and let's hop out the aircraft and take a look at where we are. Okay, so look how far the wind has drifted you over the airfield. We were going straight down the airfield at the start. Now we're way off to the east. Look below us, you see a shed load of caravans there, all quite expensive caravans. If I look further down, I'll see a hangar which costs the club around about £150,000, and nobody's going to be too happy if you drop a cable over it. You'll also look over to the east and you'll see a public highway. That public highway conveys cars, and the owners of the cars are going to be none too pleased if we drop a cable over the top of their expensive piece of machinery. There's the hangar I talked about, 150 grand, purchased with the Sports Council grant. So no, not a good launch. Fairly safe launch until the cable breaks, and then the winch driver, the poor old winch driver at the other end, has got the devil's own job to try and get that cable in and avoid damaging any of the equipment and machinery and buildings around the site. Now the point about this is this: doesn't matter where you are in the real world, you must always be aware of the surroundings of the airfield. It's not just about us getting into the air safely, it's about us getting into the air safely and not damaging any property or people. And that takes a lot of thinking about. It should be part of your pre-flight eventuality checks. What happens if? What happens if the cable breaks? Where am I in relation to the buildings? Where am I in relation to the trailers, the caravans, the people? So always be aware, always take every factor into consideration before attempting a launch. We're going to do it one final time, and this time I'm going to use a technique called laying off for drift. So once we get into the air, once I've achieved a safe height, which is about 300 feet, I'm then going to bank the aircraft over to the right, to the west, this is not just a rudder exercise or a aileron exercise. You have to fly the aircraft up it, keep this string straight at all times. But we are going to fly over to the west, so that when we release the cable is well over to the west, well out of the way of those roads and caravans, and everything is safe. That then will be a perfect launch for this site. Let's try it.
Cable is on and secure. You have a weakling. All clear above, behind, and in front. Take up slack. All out.
Okay, let's jump out and take a look at where we are. One thing I forgot to mention in the pre-flight was that as the cable gets hauled in and gets shorter and shorter, it is going to try and swing you round, so you're back facing down the field. You need to keep the stick held down to combat that, otherwise you'll suddenly find yourself going straight and it'll have been a complete waste of time. But yeah, take a look at where you are, and you can see now that we're well over to the west. The cable is safe. Once I drop the cable, the winch driver has a perfectly acceptable task to get it in well before it gets over to the road, and ideally the cable should be landing just somewhere in this area here, to the east of the field, but well within the boundary of the airfield. Just going to finish the flight now, but that's all for today, and thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon in the next video. So if you carried on watching to the end, this bit is for the benefit of all my power flying buddies that I've met through the X-Plane Gliders group who have come on and wanted to try and gliding. We talk about speed brakes in X-Plane. We tend to call them air brakes. Controlling speed is a kind of secondary effect. The way we use them on approach and landing is to adjust the rate of descent because we don't have an engine, so we can't do a go round, and we can't adjust the flight path by adjusting the engine. So what we're doing is we're using the air brakes to either improve or destroy the airflow over the wings, and so we adjust the rate of descent. If you see that green spot there, if the green spot starts to rise up the canopy, that means I'm undershooting, so I'll ease the air brakes in to improve the aerodynamics of the aircraft. If it starts to go below the yaw string, then I'll pull the brakes out so that I destroy the airflow a little more and come down in a slightly steeper angle. Once I'm over it, then I'm into landing mode, and I hold off until we touch down and we roll to a stop. So that's the use of the air brakes. I'll do some more about air brakes in a separate tutorial, but that's all for tonight. Thanks for staying with it to the end, and we'll see you in the next video.